think I can turn that off, I think. That same thing happened this week to me. It was kind of funny. There was a lady up front that it looked like she might have had limited resources, and she was trying to buy a few things, and then she didn't have the money, and so I just kind of went up there and said, can I pay for this? And I swiped my card. And it was kind of funny because I was nervous too. I don't do this all the time. I'm glad to do it, but I pulled my card out too quick and it didn't charge it, so I had to go do it again. So I wasn't cool about it. So just anyway, but I was glad to help. I asked the pastor, I think on Wednesday. I said, when do I do the sermon next? And he said, I don't know. I think in October. And so he said to get back to me, and so the next day, finally in the evening, he said, "Oh, by the way, you got this week's sermon." And I said, "Well, I'm glad I asked." So I usually tend to just write my sermons and read from them, and I'm trying not to. And I don't think I'm going to do that today because we're going to try to make our way through this here. So, the title of my sermon is, "What is the source of your power?" It's human nature for us to have heroes. I think that, it's really common to have these these movies with superheroes, or what do they call them? I'm not sure. They have all kinds of different names with superpowers. But then, it's often that we ourselves as kids, before we even understand, we look up to people. We have usually our parents. We think our dad is the strongest man in town. We think their mother is the prettiest in town, or the sweetest and everything. And she can cook the best food, those kind of things. And anyway, we can all list these heroes. And then we also look at Bible heroes that we talk about. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about somebody in the Bible that we've seen as a hero or champion, and unfortunately, he didn't really turn out that way too well. He had wonderful parents. That's one thing that really stuck out about this person, is that his parents were very amazing, I thought, personally. Anyway, they were instructed by God, these parents, to how to raise their child. He was destined to be a champion. By the way, I forgot to read about something here. I looked up in Psychology Today about heroes, about why is it that we need heroes, or why do we have them? Anyway, it was from Psychology Today. It says that we said that heroes give us hope, they energize us, they help develop us, they heal us, they impart wisdom. They're role models for our morality or our purity, our integrity. They offer safety and protection. They actually may be a physical person that we look to for protection. They give us positive emotions. They give us meaning and purpose. Also, there's social connections, and they help reduce loneliness. There's individuals who help us achieve personal goals, and heroes help society achieve societal goals as well. So we all tend to look to heroes one way or another, whether or not it be, something that we do as we imagine, or people we actually look up to. Anyway, if I was to ask you to name the most powerful man in the Bible, who would you come up with? You'd probably say Samson, right? But it's interesting. We tend to think of Samson. We think of another person, don't we? We always think of Delilah, don't we? We think of Samson and Delilah. Samson and Delilah. It's always we don't talk about Samson without Delilah. And it's unfortunate that we tend to also think of somebody who was intended to be a hero, that we also think of the person who was instrumental in his demise. We look at the things he did as this hero, a leader. He easily killed a young lion that attacked him. He just tore him up. He killed 30 men of Askelon. He caught 300 foxes and tied them tail to tail in pairs. And then he put a torch in between them and then took them to the fields where the grain was ripened and ready to go, and lit the torches and set them out. I mean, how do you handle 300 foxes? I mean, I just don't understand that. I mean, I guess he must have had a big bag to put them in or something, a big sack or net or something. Anyway, it didn't only just kill the grain, destroyed the grain, it also destroyed their vineyards and olive groves. He killed a large number of Philistines after they had killed his wife. He killed 1,000 men with a jawbone of a donkey. But he also judged Israel for 20 years. And then at the end of his life, he killed 3,000 men and women in the temple of Dagon, the fish god. Samson was gifted in a lot of ways. He was intended to be the leader of and deliverer of the people of Israel. I like so much to look at the story of the beginnings of Samson's before he was actually born. If you go to Judges 13, and we read the story there. And anyway, it says that Manoah and his wife were barren and had no children. Now, when I first read that and was thinking about that, is that I was thinking that this is like another Hannah, where, she's praying for a child. But it becomes apparent to me that this was not just Hannah's praying. This was their praying. In verse 3, we have an angel of the Lord appearing to the woman. Now, so this is some heavenly messenger who's coming and it speaks with her, and he says, "Indeed, now you," as is verse 3, "Indeed, now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son." And then he instructs her. He instructs her. "Now, therefore, please careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean." So she, to begin with, is taking on a Nazirite vow herself, and essentially, so that's what's interesting. "And then you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazirite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the land of the Philistines." So the woman came and told her husband. So immediately after this happened, because he apparently had her attention, and as soon as that happened, she goes and sees her husband. So "A man of God came to me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of God, very awesome. But I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. And he said to me, Behold," this is verse 7, you shall conceive and bear a son. Now drink nor wine or simmer drink, nor eat anything, he says, anything unclean, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, the day of his death. Then Manoah prayed. See, the first thing Manoah does is he begins to pray. I mean, it's his immediate response. And so I see this as typifying in this family that this is what they do. That this man, he is a spiritual leader in his family, in this couple. Anyway, he says, "O my Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to us again and teach us what we shall do for the child who will be born." And God listened by the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came to the woman again. Now, see, Manoah asked to come to us, but he's coming to his wife again by themselves. And as she was sitting in the field, but Manoah, her husband, was not with her. Then the woman ran in haste and told her husband and said to him, "Look, the man who came to me the other day has just now appeared to me." So, I mean, it's interesting. You know, you don't hear her name. Her name's not given. It's just Mrs. Manoah, essentially. She makes great effort to keep this unity in their relationship. She doesn't try to operate separately from him. I just love the aspect that said that she ran there. She ran in haste and told her husband. Okay, and Manoah rose and followed his wife. When he came to the man, he said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" And he said, "I am." Verse 12, Manoah said, "Now let your words come to pass. What will be the boy's rule of life and his work?" So the angel of the Lord said unto Manoah, of course, at this time, they see him as this man of God. Okay. In different versions, the Bible they explain this person in different ways. In this one, they call him the angel of the Lord. Okay, so the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, verse 13, "Oh, that of all I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat anything that comes from the vine, nor may she drink wine or simmer drink, nor eat anything unclean. All that I commanded her, let her observe." Okay, so again, she's observing the same rites as a Nazarite. And it's in the book of Numbers. They give you the requirements for that. Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Please let us detain you, and we will prepare a young goat for you." That was verse 15. Now 16. The angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Though you detain me, I will not eat your food. But if you offer a burnt offering, you must offer it to the Lord." For Manoah did not know he was the angel of the Lord. Then Manoah said, verse 17, then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, that when your words come to pass, we may honor you?" And in verse 18, the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" So Manoah took the young goat in verse 19 with the grain offering and offering it upon a rock to the Lord. And he did a wondrous thing while Manoah and his wife looked on. It happened as the flame went up towards the heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell on their faces to the ground. When the angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah, that's verse 21, and his wife then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to his wife, verse 22, "We shall surely die because we have seen God." But his wife said unto him, "If the Lord had desired to kill us, He would not have accepted a burnt offering and grain offering from our hands, nor would he have shown us all these things, nor would he have told us such things as these at this time. So I just think here is another aspect of the harmonious behavior of this couple. She submits to her husband as his helpmeet. She sure is quick to run to him to keep them both involved. And because, she surely recognizes that he is the priest of the home, the leader, and recognizes that he is responsible for that home, and so she keeps him involved. And then what's interesting, too, is that when he freaks out, I would say, he's freaking out because of what just happened. Well, you notice that when Manoah asked the man of God, the messenger, what his name was. And he said, "Why do you ask, seeing it is wonderful?" Well, if you go to Isaiah 9:6, what is one of the names of the Son of God? It's wonderful, isn't it? That's one of the names. If you read that in Isaiah 9:6, his name, he is wonderful. His name is wonderful. So it leads me to believe this is the Son of God who came and talked with them, just like the same situation as Abraham prior to the destruction of Sodom. So this family, this couple, is highly honored. To me, they must have been very highly thought of in heaven. So anyway, in verse 24, so the woman bore a son and called his name Samson, and the son grew, and he blessed, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him at this location there in. I'm not really going to pay attention to the place so much, but what's interesting is that his growing up was very simple. It just says the child grew and the Lord blessed him. It's the same thing. It's like with Jesus. When he grew up, it was just, he waxed strong and grew in favor with men and God. Just a very simple childhood. And I was once, I was a roommate for a guy, or I had a roommate, and I said once, I think I'm a very boring roommate, whatever. Well, someone said, boring is good. Boring is so much better than having drama and such like that. And I agree. I grew up in a time when, my parents provided such a simple, quiet home. So I was very fortunate in that. Anyway, so you have Samson, who has grown up in this home where even his mom has taken this Nazirite vow to be sure to eat nothing unclean. She's not to even drink any, I guess I call it grape juice, no wine. And along with that is to maintain his purity, and not to touch anything that's dead, So, and not anything unclean. So, the next thing you see in Samson's life is you see that he wants a woman that's not in the line of the godly people. He sees a woman and says, I want her, essentially. And then, the father, he says, why can't you pick somebody of our people? And he says, I desire this woman, get her for me. And I mean, he's a grown man. I think it's probably a tendency to think that maybe, the parents were too easy. Maybe they were spoiling him and everything. Well, okay, so he got everything he needed. I think we all want to be spoiled that way, don't we? What is it worth to fight against a grown man who's ready now to move on to his phase of life? So they choose to go ahead and pick this woman for them, and he, in his mind, it's kind of interesting. The Bible seems to bring out that or it's a spirit prophecy, I'm not sure which one, brings out the idea that he has intentions to do something to effect God's power, but he's kind of doing it in a way that's not really the way that he should be. He was raised to be a leader. Prior to Samuel, he was a prophet and priest. A large percentage of the people of Israel were openly disobeying God by intermingling with the Philistines, because they started joining themselves with those who followed other gods. Actually, I think they followed Dagon. God allowed them to be partially or fully subjugated to these people as a punishment. But it's often, it's the same thing as we deal with this world as Christians. We don't have idols like stone and such like that we deal with, but we have so much in this world who tries to get our attention, whether it be jobs, whether it be through sex, whether it be through other endeavors, like through maybe having possessions, career, and so we're drawn to these things. So we have to be careful as well. So you have this man who's had an upbringing of purity, of parents who love him, that have done everything, even to we might say was the earliest prenatal care, you might say. And also you have to remember too, because of the united family, this was also the father was involved as well. So this unity, this harmonious home has provided Samson with such a background, such a foundation to work from. So anyway, but what is he doing? He's being drawn to a woman from another, you might say, idolatrous race of people, nations or whatever, and then later on you see this happening twice. Later on he's in with a prostitute, and then later on he's with this woman called Delilah, and in some versions or some translations of her name mean consumer, and I guess like having a consumption or something, Anyway, so the source of our power that we receive too is the companions that we choose, being obedient to our parents, our consecration towards God. Our daily habits are what equips us, just as it did equip Samson. We pray for obedience and on behalf of others. We pray for God's word ever before us and in our minds. Our diet is so important. Samson and even his mother beforehand was practicing temperance and self-control. And then, how do we act when we have chance to exercise our own responsibility? Let's see. In the first two paragraphs of Patriarchs and Prophets in chapter 54, it says, amid the widespread apostasy, the faithful worshipers of God continued to plead with him for deliverance of Israel. Though there was apparently no response, though year after year the power of the oppressor continued to rest more heavily upon the land, God's providence was preparing him help for them. Even in the early years of the Philistine oppression, a child was born through whom God designed to humble the power of these mighty foes. On the border of the hill country overlooking the Philistine plain was the little town of Zorah. There dwelt the family of Manoah of the tribe of Dan, one of the few households that amid the general defection had remained true to Jehovah. By the way, I wanted to bring out one thing, and I forgot to bring it out earlier, is that when we see Manoah's wife and how that she kept this unity in their marriage, and I was thinking, when she ran to get her husband, can you think of somebody in the Bible that really would have helped if she had decided to do that? I come to mind. I think of Eve. But of course, at that time, we learned from our failures, right? And so she didn't have any. They didn't have any failures to learn from. So we have to understand that that she didn't have that experience. She was told to stay near her husband, but she didn't realize what could be the outcome, I guess, if that was happening. But if she had chose to do as she'd been told to be next to her husband, then that may have saved us so much grief. But it happened, and here we are. Anyway, also we see the situation where when Manoah was really freaking out about the experience of, I think that he felt that maybe he was being too familiar with this heavenly visitor, who he believed was God, and he was so upset. Anyway, and Noah's wife was comforting him and counseling him. And I usually think of Job's wife. I think that if she had been, was wanted to give, even though maybe she couldn't change things, but at least she could have given him a little more comforting counsel in his time of despair, or not despair, but time of trial. When we go to the book of Hebrews, we see in there that Samson is mentioned among the those in we call the Hall of Faith and heroes. I'll read that here, Hebrews 11. Let me get to it here real quick. Let's see here. It says in verse 32, it says, "And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, and stopped the mouths of lions. They quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. And the women received their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection." Anyway, I see that, we see that that Samson is there, is listed. And, it seems like Samson's life is one of just constant making the wrong choices. And it seems to be one of failure. Even in his when he did his greatest feat, when he killed 3,000 of the Philistines in one moment, it was done with his eyes put out, and he was like a slave. He was grinding as if he was a beast of burden, grinding out the grain, and so. So it's a very humiliating end. But he's still listed there, and I think that should give us all hope to see that the Lord is merciful, and that He loves us, and that He sees that we in our efforts and our that He wants to save us. Anyway, I want to just recap real quick, is that to me the source of our power is related to our consecration. You see that Samson's, as he was raised, his source comes from the devotion, the what his parents had done for him, and it's only when he departed from that, when he sought out women of different nations that didn't have the guidelines and the devotions that the women of his group had. He also he later on touched a dead animal when he wasn't supposed to, and he didn't tell his parents when he shared food with them that had come from this dead lion, which was very irresponsible, for that would make them unclean. And it's really believed that he drank of the vineyards. So when you see him at the end, where he gets his hair cut and then he loses his power, it's really more of a symbol. It's the same thing kind of like for us for like baptism. It symbolizes what we're doing. And in the same sense, when he got his hair cut, that symbolized that he had essentially forsaken all of his vows as a Nazirite, and then he lost his power. So really, it was his lack of faith, lack of trusting. It wasn't any power in his hair at all. It was his faithfulness, his consecration, his following his vows. That was the power of the source of his power. And Delilah finally got from him that secret, but and he told her what it was. But it's like for us, the devil knows what the source of our power is. We don't have to tell him. We don't have to give up the secret, because he already knows. He knows the time that we spend alone with God in His Word and in prayer and meditation. That is our source of our power, and we must always remember that and never forget that. So, thanks.